many four-letter words can I use on that?
Don't get taken down. Figure it out. Like, find a way to not get taken down, even if there's a minute left.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
We have an amazing culture within our program, and we build it. We don't buy it. We build it.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is a very special guest, of course, the new Campbell head coach, TJ Dudley. Coach, good to talk to you. It's I'm sure it's been a whirlwind for you over this past week since being elevated to this position. So I guess we'll just start right there. What has this last week been for you now that you are going to be leading the Campbell wrestling program going into this new season?
I'm happy to be here, man. Yeah, it's been hectic. I've been busier than I've probably ever been in my whole life, and I've been talking to some of my mentors like Coach Snyder and Coach Manning, and they're like, "Well, get used to it because it's pretty much the rest of your life." So, but I'm enjoying it. As an assistant, you're always looking for you're recruiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're living in the portal a little bit. Right now, I'm head coach with no assistants, so I'm playing all three roles. And I think I've been on the portal for 22 out of 24 hours in the day.
Oh, man. I mean, just on that point right there, considering you're wearing all three hats right now, head coach, which is basically the CEO of the program, your assistant role, which where you were elevated from last year, you're recruiting, you're hitting the portal, and for all we know, you have to train these guys too in the summer as well. So how have you been able to pretty much do this balancing act over the last week plus, or knowing that I know you were just elevated to head coach earlier this week, but when you're like, okay, this is a distinct possibility, I have to now wear all three hats. What's like the day-to-day right now as you eventually build out a staff for this coming year?
Yeah, so it's like the saying, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So I'm kind of doing it leading into this process, with me being a possibility, and our summer training going on. So I kind of focused on let's do summer training, and then once practice is over, let's dedicate a few hours to the next thing, right? What's the next thing? We got to get guys on the team, right? A few hours of that, and then obviously now in the job, it's like you just schedule out your day where it's like, all right, I got a call with this guy. To be on the team. An hour later, I got a call with this guy to be a coach. I got a call with this guy to maybe hire. And then I got a call with compliance and the business office and then another recruit, And so it's as long as you just got to be a little organized, right? You got to you got to line up how exactly how you want your day to go from the beginning. You can't just jump from one thing to another because you might run over on time here and then forget about this person, right?
Right.
So it's been a little hectic, but like I said, one bite at a time, just chop away at the bit, and you get it all done eventually.
I think one good thing is that you've already been with this program for at least a calendar year. You were hired last year, coming over from Brown. Scotty Sentes, he stepped down as the head coach, but I was curious about what you learned from him, at least how he modeled himself and how he wanted to elevate this Campbell wrestling program, how he wanted to develop guys, fundraising. You guys are, not in one of the traditional Power Four conferences. So I guess just to make it simple, what did you learn from him last year as an assistant, coming back closer to home a little bit, coaching for Campbell? And I would imagine you're going to take some things that he did, but also put your own a little twist on it for this coming season too.
Absolutely. When you become, especially the CEO, like you said, of a program, you got to put your stamp on it. What makes Campbell Wrestling mine, right? But Sentes, he taught me a lot, man. One of the best things, and I never had this issue, but in a role that is obviously looked at as super stressful, very busy, always kind of, going. He taught me the fun in work, right? He was never afraid to do work. And he found a way to make it fun. And really working with him was like like the big eye opener. You know, people hate to go to work sometimes. People hate to do this. It's like, man, work sucks. I love going to work. I love going to work. We worked hard and then we won. You know what I mean? And he kind of taught me how to do that. Obviously in the assistant role, but then watching him do it in the head coach role was like, oh dang, that's the kind of guy. You know, I want to kind of do my thing like that. I want to enjoy coming to work every day. Big smile on his face, and then he's hammering away at his phone 24/7. I was giving him crap about it, but now I get it. You know, my phone's at 6% and it's 10 o'clock. But I understand now. But he wasn't afraid to work, and then he wasn't afraid to be innovative, right? You guys have seen some of the things we do, like the battle of the barn, the battle on the ship, the battle on the what do we call it? Like the duel on the diamond. We wrestled against Nebraska on the baseball field. Our freaking wrestling mat looks like an octagon. You know what I'm saying? The guy was creative and he had fun, and he found a way to make the sport innovative in a spot where you know, wrestling isn't as big in the South, right? And, you know, he built a crowd. He built a way to do it and make it kind of big down here.
It's funny you mentioned the eye-opening part of it where you found different ways to have fun as an assistant coach. And now, of course, as a head coach where it's not just work. It's not just, all right, got to make X amount of calls, send X amount of emails and train Y amount of guys. But the innovation factor to me is fascinating. Did you even think about stuff like this? You know, again, you come from a big traditional wrestling school. When you wrestled at Nebraska, you were up in the Ivy League when you were coaching over at Brown. So when you come to a spot like this back closer to home, where, as you just mentioned, wrestling is not as big as it is in the Northeast or out in the Midwest or even out west, out in California, for one example, when you see all these innovations where it's like, all right, we're going to duel in a barn on a ship, and we're going to make our mat look a little funky, and it's going to attract people, you know, out of the woodwork. Did you even know about some of this stuff that, you know, Coach Sentes was even trying to come up with last year, where you're just like, wow, I never in a million years would have thought of something like that?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was like, it was immediate where it was like, he's like, oh, dude, we're going to have some fun. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, we got this. We're going to do that. I'm like, what? That's crazy. And he's like, no, dude, it's like, we did it this year. It was so cool. And this is how we're going to do it this year. I'm like, man, I can't wait. And we have a duel every year at our, like our homecoming orange and black, where we have our guys, we put a mat outside and they wrestle in front of the outside. Our guys do our wrestle off. Basically outside in front of a crowd, and the sun's beaming and it's hot outside, and everybody, it's just a huge crowd. And it's like, what is going on? And I've never, like you said, I'm very traditional. I came from a traditional place where it's like our crowd was in the arena. You know, we wrestled there every time, didn't change anything up. And so now seeing this this is kind of like opening my eyes to all the possibilities, where it's like, man, wrestling doesn't just have to be in the arena. And I loved it. You know, I was surprised every time we did something different. We went to Wyoming. They gave us cowboy hats. We shaved our mustaches funny. We're in jeans and boots, and like, that's not allowed on the side of the mat, but you get a waiver for it. They don't care, you know.
That's really cool. When you were coaching over at Brown, now I know you came into this program last year. Were you? I mean, I know you're still young in your coaching career, but did you envision yourself trying to come back closer to home? Now, I'm not gonna say, you know, it was always Campbell, or maybe you had your eye on North Carolina in some sort of role. You know, just throwing it out there. But you being from this area, did you eye at any point where it's like, all right, if I'm going to coach, I want to coach back closer to home? Or was it kind of just happenstance where you're like, hey, this is closer to home and I'm going to jump on this opportunity?
So I'm a military kid, and I'm used to moving my whole life. And then right out of high school, I graduated. The next weekend I was in Nebraska, so I'm no stranger to distance. I actually never considered the closer to home aspect when I was looking for a place, you know, to coach. When I was at Brown, after my first year, Scotty offered me a job, and I came down and I trained here for 2 weeks because I was training for the U.S. Open, and I loved it. You know, I wrestled with Tay, I wrestled with Levi back when they were younger, Caleb Hopkins, and I just liked the area. I liked what was going on. I liked what they were doing, but at the time, it wasn't like the time for me to leave Brown. You know, so ultimately, I turned the job down. And then, you know, 3 years later, he offered me another job there. And I was like, yeah, I do want to, I want to branch out. I want to try something new. And I was like, well, I guess it is kind of close to home. That's cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I didn't, my mom, I see her when I do. She's the only one that lives in, my mom and my brother and sister are the only one that live in South Carolina still.
Mhm.
My dad's out in Texas and I got family all over the country. So that wasn't ever really a factor for me in deciding to come back.
Mhm.
It was just how much I loved what was going on here at Campbell that I kind of wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a very unique spot, and you already mentioned the innovation and what you guys have done as a program to elevate, your presence on campus, and of course nationwide. Was obviously the wrestling community does notice it, even if they're out, if they're out west. Like, okay,
Yep.
yeah, I could see that
Yeah.
that school out in Carolina. We could see that. As far as the team is concerned, I know you're still hammering away, trying to bring in new recruits. I'm sure you're hammering the portal right now. It's a very relatively young team, and of course, as we sit here at the end of July, going into August, there's still a long way to go before we even get to the preseason, of course. But when you look at what you have with the team right now, as you build out your staff and maybe build out a more official looking roster a couple months from now, what have you noticed over the course of the summer so far in terms of development and training? And has anything really stuck out to you so far?
Yeah. Guys on the team, we got a good core group of guys, like our team right now, right?
Mhm.
They kind of embody and envision what we want here. They have that culture that I kind of want to continue to build. They're already a part of that, right?
Mhm.
And those guys didn't do anything but step up over the summer. They trained harder. They came in and had conversations about what ifs. Coach, if you're the guy, I want to. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah to make my mark and do this. And if you're not the guy, this is how I'm going to do it. Right. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And those things sounded the same, because their minds are, their heads are screwed on tight. Their minds are in the right spot and they're not really worried about it. Right. On the flip side of things, other guys, it was a time for them to grow somewhere else. Right. And I
Yep.
love those guys to death, but they're like, all right, well, Coach Sintez is gone. And, my time here at Campbell may be like it was good, but it may be time for me to go somewhere else, experience something new. And a lot of our guys on the team decided to do that, but they're gonna go there and they're gonna crush it, right? We had a good group of guys that can be good anywhere they go. And so I'm excited and I'm proud of both guys, right? The guys
Yeah.
that decided to step out and do what they got to do, and the guys that decided to stay here. We had some guys that got in the portal because they liked the comfortability of me and our staff and what we had going on, and they weren't sure. But now they're back with us. They withdrew and they're back at Campbell, and their heads are on tight, right? They're like, all right, it's you. Let's get this going. How are we going to do this thing? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'll let you guys know in about a week.
I like that though, but again, it just shows the buy-in from those guys as well. So I guess on a related note right there, because you mentioned how you're wearing all three hats right now. One, when you build your staff, do you plan on bringing, on 2 coaches, 3 coaches? What do you envision there? And I guess, what are you looking for in an assistant coach? Like, do you want guys around, like, do you want a seasoned veteran to help carry the load, so to speak? Do you want like the young and up and coming type of assistant coach? What are you really looking for in your staff for your first season as head coach?
So I got a couple different strategies that I want to attack. First and foremost, I need a lightweight guy. I need a lightweight coach. I wrestled 184 all 5 years. I'm about 200 pounds now. I can't I can't roll around and scrap with a 25-33. That's a different style of wrestling. So I need a lightweight coach. That's my priority. I need a guy that can kind of man the helm from 25 to 49 to 57, so to speak, right? As for experience, I want a little bit of both. Initially I had a plan that I wanted to kind of spearhead, and after looking at things, that wasn't the way to go. And that's life. It's trial and error, right? So my next thing is where I want a young, firing, up and coming guy that's ready to scrap every day, wrestle with the guys. They want to learn the profession, right? They want to grow and eventually become, head assistant, head associate, that kind of stuff, or associate head coach. And unfortunately, with a smaller schools, they usually get poached and go somewhere bigger. Right. But if you're losing assistants and they're going to better schools, that's a good thing, right? That's like developing a guy. He gets on the podium and then he goes somewhere else. And with NIL, he's making money these days. But on the flip side, I do want somebody that's a little more experienced to help not carry the load for me, but help teach the younger guy, right?
Yeah.
If I'm spending all my time teaching two assistants, I'm not doing the things that I need to do, right?
Yeah.
Which is fundraising, obviously planning out how we're going to run the year, that kind of stuff, right? That top level down stuff. I need a guy that can both do the job and help somebody else learn the job, right?
Yeah.
And that might look like a guy that's been in the profession for 2 or 3 years, or that might look like a guy that's been doing it for 8 or 9 years. But I got a good feel for people, and I ask the right questions. And so I'll find that person. I'll find the right person, and we'll get rolling.
Yeah, I like that approach. And you mentioned the NIL type of stuff. That's been, over at On3. We've seen the progression of it from its infancy days, which was about 5-6 years ago, to where it is now. And people want to say it's the Wild West or it's rampant, but it's constantly changing every day. So college wrestling's in a very unique spot too, where it's not football, it's not men's basketball, where there's money to be had pretty much everywhere. But wrestling, It's like there's select spots where there's money available, or sometimes small programs can find said money as well. So, excuse me. When you look at, I guess, how you guys are going to fundraise and how you want to approach NIL. Now, again, I'm not saying you're going to go out and pretty much pay the entire starting lineup, a year's salary. You know what I mean? But how do you approach something like that coming from a smaller school? And I know it wasn't around when you wrestled at Nebraska, but obviously a school like that or other Big Ten schools, they have more resources, so to speak. So how do you guys approach it from a small school perspective?
It's hard to battle. It's not. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's a tough thing to approach, right? You wanna ultimately get guys that want to be here for the right reasons. And don't get me wrong, money's a good reason to want to be somewhere, but you gotta have the right training situation. You gotta relate with the coaches. And people are starting to open their eyes a little bit, but you're starting to see guys that do these big transfers for all this money aren't doing so well, right? They got a lot of money, but they're at a school where maybe they're not getting the attention they need. They're not getting that one-on-one affection and attention that they need from or relationships from coaches and their team, right? Sometimes you might be the guy that, guys on the team may not like you as much because you're on XY, you're getting all this money and you're just here for that. And, they've been here since day one grinding. And as a small school, right, we're not handing out big bags. We're not making paydays for people. Guys are coming here for the right reasons. They're training. They want to win. They want to do X, Y, Z. So we got a little bit of that X factor. I want to say more than some people, there are still kids at those big schools that want it and they're hungry and they got the right coaching and they're going to do it, right? But we just got to do it. We just got to do it so well that it's evident, right? And we lost Tay last year, which is like a good thing, I think. Tay was going to be here his last year, and he didn't want to leave. He loved it. He loved it here, but with his injury and the medical red shirt, it's like it made sense, right? It just made sense. And you can't fault a kid for that. And I tell my kids, it's like, hey, if you come into my office and we're at the point where you're telling me, Coach, I'm getting XYZ offered at this school and I really want to be here, it's like I did something right. I did something really right. You wrestle really well. You're carrying yourself well. You're getting on the podium, XYZ, and it's like I don't want to lose you, but I understand, right?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, it's my job to fundraise and find a middle ground where, he can go to Iowa for $200,000, right? Or if I can raise you $75,000 and you can stay here and win another national title, is that an option? And they're like, take less money to stay home, XYZ. And when you get a good guy, you have that conversation. It's like, hey, I believe in you. You got potential out the wazoo. Right now, I'm fundraising today for you in 2 years, right? And have that package ready. Be ready to battle a little bit.
It's interesting because you've been coaching in this type of era for college athletics, but you were over at Brown in the Ivy League, which is, again, it's a lot different. So the Ivy League schools,
So much different.
they don't opt into the rev sharing. And again, I know that the rev sharing is mostly for, the Power Four conferences, where
Yep.
now you're going to see that money start trickling down, after it goes through football and
Mhm.
basketball for most of these schools, of course. But it's interesting to me because you didn't necessarily have to deal with it per se, I guess, when it comes to the portal and NIL, because of the Ivy League standards and I guess the way the Ivy League obviously operates in terms of their
Yep.
athletics. Was it kind of eye-opening? I mean, you knew about it, but was it eye-opening to you when you come to Campbell last year and you're like, oh yeah, this is a real thing. Like this is no joke.
Yeah. Yes and no.
Mhm.
So while we didn't have to deal with it in the Ivy League for us, we still recruited against those guys,
Yeah.
and it was we can get guys in Ivy Leagues. People forget that Ivy Leagues can get, they got tremendous financial aid packages, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, we can get you in school basically for nothing. And then, the kid's like, oh, that's great, coach, but I can get into school here for nothing and get $10,000 a year. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, if we give you $10,000 a year, you can't get into school for nothing anymore, because it's all based on how much money you got.
Right.
So that, it was like when the NIL talk happened in the Ivy League, where I was, the conversation kind of stopped, right?
Mhm.
Cornell's getting to a spot where they can do that battle, UPenn, that kind of stuff. And I think Brown's on the up and coming with that. But here is different, right?
Mhm.
We got a little scholarship here where we can offer money. With scholarships come stipends, and then you can add on top of that if necessary. But you got to be smart, right?
Mhm.
You got 30 kids to take care of, and our donor base is wonderful. I love our donors and alumni, but we aren't one of those Power Four schools
Yeah.
where millions and millions are coming in from for football, and then maybe $500,000 trickles for wrestling, and now they got
Yeah.
that to we we're a smaller school that don't quite got that pushing power. So yeah, it is a real thing. It's a real thing to battle, and there's a little shock where it's like I gotta come up with creative ways to get guys to want to come here through all these other deals that they see, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess speaking along that shock factor, was there a pinch me moment for you as a coach, whether it was within this last week when you became head coach and you're balancing all these different roles right now? It could have been last year, could have been at the start of your coaching career. Was there a moment where you're just like, yeah, I'm adjusting to a new reality outside of my competitive career where, I have to balance developing kids, help fundraising, be a
Mhm.
CEO. Was there one moment for you over the last couple of years where you're like, wow, this is entirely different from when I was, focusing on myself around my teammates to compete?
Mhm. Um, yeah, I've had two actually. One
Mm,
more recently. The first one was kind of at Brown when I won't mention names, but me and a kid kind of got into like I guess a live wrestling scenario where it was
mm,
like um yeah, I could win this and um feel good about it. But I think letting this kid kind of get the better of me here is gonna like do more for him,
yeah.
right? And while I was still training, my first job was coach, right? And there's a moment where like you gotta be a little more selfless as coach, right? You can't
Mhm,
be as selfish as a guy that's training. And when you're training, you want to be selfish. You want the reps, you want the wins, you want XYZ, you want to get better. But I had a pinch me moment there where it's like, no, I'm coach, and I gotta help this kid elevate, and this is gonna help him elevate, right?
mhm,
So I had to alter how I wrestled there, and he ended up performing pretty well. The other pinch me moment, and it kind of bringing us back to this NIL thing is,
mhm.
I had guys in the portal that were excited to come back if I got the job, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, all right, well, give me a week. Let's see what happens. And that week goes by, a lot happened for them and a lot happened for me. And now it's like, all right, well, I got the job, come on back, and they're like, all right, well, coach, hold on. It's like, whoa, what do you mean hold on, what's happening? And they're like, well, this school, they reached out and they're giving me this wonderful fantastic deal, and I'm getting all this money and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, okay. And it was like kind of a pinch me moment where like, man, you know, it's nice to have these conversations and the what ifs, you know, and then
Mhm.
when you get into that like meaty, you know, meaty part of it, the nitty gritty is like, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
you got to wheel and deal, nickel and dime a little bit where you're like, all right, this is real. Here we go, you know?
Mhm. Without
And
a doubt.
you know, I met with some people and I had to think, you know, as an assistant, you got to run things through the head coach all the time.
Mhm.
And 4 days into my job as head coach, I still think like, dang, I got to run. No, I don't. I got to make the decision. All right. You know, it's like, oh, what does this person think about it? It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I got to choose, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
It's pretty funny. So you're doing all three roles. Like, oh, I got to run them by myself. Okay, we're good. So it's like one of those situations.
yeah.
Um,
Literally, like, is that
yeah.
a good idea? Yeah, it's good. All right, cool.
I like that. We discussed Coach Sentis's influence on you from last year. I was curious
Mhm.
about Mark Manning and Coach Snyder's influence on you back from your days in Nebraska. Now, again, that was back during your competitive days, and
Yep.
3-time All-American, NCAA finalist. They're still at it. Hard at work adjusting to the new reality of college athletics over there in
Mhm.
Lincoln. So when you look at, I guess, what they're doing, do you take tidbits of, I guess, how they coached you a little bit and how you saw Coach Sentis operate when you were working underneath him? Do you take a little bit of both from both of those areas and try to apply it to what you're going to do as a head coach?
Yeah. So those guys, I mean, those are my mentors. They're my guys. You know, they changed my life. I talk to them all the time. I talked
Mm.
to I talked to Snyder 2 days ago. I talked to Manning yesterday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
asking,
Yeah.
I'm running questions by them. And that's not a new thing. You know, when I got my first job at Brown, you know, or before I got my job at Brown, I was like, Manning, is this a good idea? What do you think? And he was like, at the time it was Todd Beckerman. He's like, oh, Beckerman's great. You know,
Mhm.
you're gonna enjoy working for him. Beckerman wrestled with Snyder under Manning and stuff. And so I'm like, okay. And then when he stepped down, and Jordan came in, same thing. Called Snyder, called Manning, talked about him throughout the year. It's like, hey, coach, I'm having trouble with this kid. How did you deal with this? Um, how did you manage a kid in this situation and get him to the next level, right?
Mhm.
Because as an athlete, you're only thinking about you. You
Right.
only think about me, and then you can recall moments where you were almost in that scenario and you were out of it, or you were in this scenario and you were out of it. But it's not the same, right? You aren't all these other kids in all these different in like parts of their life, right? And I got two great mentors that deal with that every day, and they have for 20 years.
Mhm.
And so I ask them a lot of questions. I reach out often. And I loved my time in Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it. And I loved hating my time in Nebraska. The 6 a.m. stadiums were awful. You know, the 5 mile run. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you enjoy the process and you get to love that part of wrestling. Everybody has their stories. But yeah, I absolutely want to run my program in that regard. They just got #2 in the country.
Mhm.
I want to be #2 and I want to be #1 in the country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
want to model myself after real life role models and examples that I have, and real life experience that I've had. Right. And if I can run um, my room and get guys like they do to a degree that they not obviously not the degree that Nebraska gets them, but to a degree getting to that point, we're doing something
Mhm.
right. We start getting 9 guys to the tournament. You're doing something right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I obviously want to take a lot of inspiration from those two. And Scotty did things right, right? Scotty did things his way. And there's a lot of things like I said, I learned how to have fun with work, how to be innovative, how to think outside the box. So, like you said, taking tidbits and pieces from everybody I've worked under. Todd Beckerman did things his way. Jordan Lean is doing things his way
Mhm.
out at Brown. And, you know, uh, taking inspiration from all those guys and then adding my stamp on it, right? How I
Yeah.
how I want to do things, and obviously not just taking and using theirs, taking them, putting them together, mixing them around, making my own kind of recipe.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a sprinkle of me, right? What does this look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm. Yeah.
that's
It'll
where I'm
still.
at right now. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, it'll certainly be unique. Speaking of the innovation stuff, I just wanted your take on this because obviously we are in the summer and there's a lot of it going on right now with these pro leagues where for these guys that are leaving college, if they can't make the world team, the Olympic team, they have these options now. There's RAF, CWA,
I
Claude.
love it.
I think they just had a draft as well. I
Yep.
wanted your take on that and say, if that were an option when you were leaving college. I know you multiple time placer at the U.S. Open, and you
Yep.
had your time during at the senior level. If this was an option for you at one point, would this be something that you would have considered as a competitor? And maybe I'll leave the door open for you. Are you still going to try? Maybe still try to compete. Maybe
I was gonna say
one-off match here and there.
Absolutely. I've talked, before I got selected for this job, I was talking to be on one of these teams, and I love this. I love it. It's awesome. Unfortunately, not unfortunate at all. Fortunately, I'm in a position where I will never cut weight again. And so, I lift how I want, I eat how I want. And if I can wrestle in a position that, I don't mean I'll never lose weight, but I'm never going to drop 20 pounds to wrestle somebody.
Yeah.
Right? If I can drop 10, 12, that ain't too hard. 2 workouts in a sauna, I'll be there. But, it didn't work out for me with Claw and XYZ because, it's just the weight thing, right? I don't want to wrestle heavyweight because I'm going to be competitive wherever I go. And I don't want to have to cut down to 200, if I'm walking at 225 or something.
Right.
But right out of college, I would have signed up for every one of them, every one that I could. I'd have wrestled in this one and then flew over next week and wrestled in the next one. I think these are awesome opportunities for guys, and I think it's a cool way to keep the sport relevant after college, right? You see, I know Seth Gross, I want to say, posted it. It's like you see these guys in the 30s that are finally finding the success that they've been chasing after. And so you got a lot of life in you after you graduate college. And if that means changing the sport to where it's more fun, where you're hitting pylons or, you got 5 1-minute periods, right? It's like, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. But keep the sport alive, keep it entertaining, keep it fresh, keep guys involved. And I love it. And if I can get, all my guys keep telling me I look thinner. It might be from, the stress of the job, but I'm loving it. If I happen to find myself around 200 pounds, I'm definitely going to sign up for one. That'd be cool.
Absolutely. Well, I'm part of a CWA for this next event for August. So if CWA comes a calling, I'll be sure to give you quite the recommendation. As long as you have to cut weight, we're not going to be cut weight.
I ain't dropping more than 10 pounds to do anything.
I love hearing that. A couple more for you. And again, I appreciate your time today. Speaking of the innovation, are there, I have 2 questions on this. One, do you envision something a little bit different this year, or are you going to kind of stick to the status quo? For you guys, the status quo is doing something really cool in terms of the dual meet. Do you have stuff already on the schedule or on the docket already where it's like, all right, yeah, we're definitely going to do a Fight Pass event again against Wyoming in a barn, or we're going to go wrestle on one of these naval ships? Do you have stuff like that already planned out for this coming season?
Yeah, we do. We're going to be battling at Yorktown on the naval ship down in Charleston, I believe. That one's going to be pretty cool. And then, what is it? Later in December, we got something special kind of lined up. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm looking to keep the innovative part of wrestling, especially in the South when it's like we talked about, it's not as big as it is in the Midwest. So you got to find ways to make it cool, right? The thing is with wrestling, people love it. It's a wonderful sport. You got to get exposure to it, right?
Yeah.
I've been to 6 restaurants where they're like, "Oh, hi, why's your ears like that?" Or like, "Oh, you're the wrestling coach. Man, what's that like? Like, I never seen a match before." And it's like, "Oh, you got to come out. Come on, And now we got a fan for life, right?" He brings his friend. They come out and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome." And they just never had exposure to it, right? They've heard about it, but they don't have that invite, that personal connection, or whatever it is to get people involved. You hear like, "Oh, what, a Navy ship? Oh, I want to see that." And then, guys are coming out to see that, and that's cool, right? So the biggest thing is to make a big enough splash to bring in a draw, to bring in fans And yeah, it's cool, but then it's like now they're fans, And when
Yeah.
you're a fan, you're gonna watch when you can, whether it's in the Navy ship, whether it's just at the match. And then if you get lucky enough to get to the NCAA tournament, it's like that's a whole different experience. That's the best event in the world.
Mhm.
So yeah, we do want to keep that, but I want to find a way to make it my own, right?
Mhm.
It's like Scotty is Scotty's known for his innovative, his all the cool matches, all that stuff, and he's made that a part of Campbell that I want to keep. But I want when people think about TJ Dudley or Campbell and TJ Dudley, I want them to think about something entirely different, right?
I like
And
that.
we haven't quite gotten to that, but that's where I want. I want to leave my stamp.
I like that approach and I like that mentality. I'll leave you here with this one, and it's all on the same lines in terms of the innovation and I guess just bringing people to the sport, growing the sport. I've asked virtually everybody under the sun what they thought about this. I would say 99% are on board with it as far as the people that I talk to. But an NCAA dual meet championship where that's your team champion, individual tournament stays as is, but we have a tournament for college wrestling, 12 teams, 24 teams, throw them in a bracket like the college football playoff. Dual meet championship, and you go from there. Every conference gets a bid, however it looks. But I feel like that is something where that's how you continue to grow the sport from a team aspect, and I guess the quote unquote more casual fan perspective. So I was curious about what you thought of something like that.
Man, I've been on both sides of this argument. I love it in one regard, and I hate it in another regard. I can flip on this because at its core, I just don't think wrestling's really a team sport.
Yeah.
And I think we've made it into team aspects and where we have teams and that kind of thing. And I think a dual meet championship would be freaking cool.
Yeah.
But I hate the idea of it because then you get into those just don't get pins, those kind of
okay.
Where you're teaching guys to wrestle the wrong way. And we talk so much about just getting better and doing the right things and XYZ. And I think when you start to do some of that stuff, one, you strip the pride out of it, right? Or it's like, all right, I'm gonna go get my butt kicked. I just can't get Tector Pan for the team, And it's like, I don't want to teach any of my guys to think that way.
Yeah.
I want you to think I don't care if you're 15th, 30th, or not ranked. If you're going to wrestle the 1 or 2 guy, go out there to beat it, to kick his butt. And so, and there's a real, being realistic. He's like, oh, well, he's got no chance. It's like, well, I don't care. I don't want him going out there in any challenge in his life thinking oh, I just got to not get pinned. Right.
Yeah.
So from that aspect of it, I hate it, But from the competitive aspect of it, it's like, yeah, it would be freaking cool. It'd be really cool when you got 10 guys battling to win and you take out the gamesmanship of it. It'd be a cool thing to see, right?
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate that perspective, especially the first part of it where you're like, yeah, I mean, you don't want to send a kid out there who's like, all right, as long as we don't give a 5 or 6, we're good. But you want to send them out there to win. So I do appreciate that perspective. TJ, I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to watching this new era of Campbell wrestling. The floor is yours. Anything you want to plug, social media for yourself, the team, or any events you guys have coming up this summer, obviously ahead of the new season.
No, I'm not a big social media guy. My presence is almost non-existent. So, go follow Campbell Wrestling, go follow Campbell University. Watch us over these next few years, right? We're going to, we're not gone, but we're going to grow. We're going to continue to grow. We're not going anywhere. I know there's a lot of talk online about maybe them dropping the program or this, or that. It's not happening. We're not going anywhere. We're here to stay, and we're going to keep winning championships, right? We're going to keep winning SoCon titles, and we're going to keep increasing the amount of guys that we want to send to nationals. We got tremendous support from the rest of the world, and we got tremendous support here at Boys Creek. And so, just watch us, right? Get on social media, follow us, and watch us grow.
I like that. Nice little mic drop. Not going anywhere. Here to stay. Campbell here to stay and grow. TJ Dudley with me here on On3 Wrestling. Be sure to follow our social media and all of our content at on3.com. sure to like and subscribe to this video as well. TJ, good luck this season. I'm sure we'll be talking again as the season approaches. And, of course, hope to catch up with you at Nationals as well.
Sound good. Hope to catch up with you guys, too.